Okay, I'll go right. Yeah, okay. So once again, my name is Hojin Lee. I'm in Central Asia right now since we have the house church that only our family gathers. So I guess I mean it's not going to be a good example to present, but I remember the church that I used to go to. That's one of the Korean churches, and then I do see there's some generation the problems first and second generation because of the language barrier. In the first generation also they're so busy with their schedule, so they don't really have time to be available for their kids. But the kids especially for the teenagers, they are wondering about their identity. Who am I? Why am I living here? What's the meaning of the life and things like that. But there's nobody else but the friends they can go to. So the parents are not available and they're wondering, and later, at the end, I mean, ultimately, they're doubting about their faith too. So a lot of times the parents, all they could do was, they just bring the kids to church on Sundays and then let the ministers, the pastors, the church people take care of their kids spiritually. But I guess I see that the problem is that a lot of ministers, they are having hard time to show how to evangelize the people. Either, they don't know how, or number two, maybe, they don't have a sense of urgency, or they don't have they have maybe laziness, to show all that. So that's the thing that I see the problem between the church and the parents and kids, church and the kids. So all combination that kind of going to, I see a very less the people actually teaching the next generation, especially for the teenager, to share how to share the gospel. So I do see all kinds of the problems between all those generation, the church, or the organizations, in between. So that's how I see it.
I'm Lucy Xinbai. To answer the question, I think if I interviewed every parent, I would say maybe only one or two could really know how to explain the gospel to their teenagers. I want to answer that we all are trained or know how to present the gospel verbally, systematically, but I just doubt we really ever got the training. At church, we sing the hymns a lot, and we the adults talk to each other about the gospel all the time, but I just don't think we are trained to do so, and especially like how the parents don't really have the chance to communicate with their teenagers because at their age. At church, I teach children, and they are so adorable. They want to listen to everything you say, but I understand teenagers, they are at the age to maybe doubt their identity and their faith, and so I think it's hard. Oh, sorry about that. And that was my answer.
I'm Jordy Skinner, and I'm currently a student minister at a church in South Carolina. And so I get a pretty good picture of this question on a regular basis. And I would say that if I were to ask the parents at my church, how many of them could explain how to share the gospel with a teenager, maybe 1/3 of them could do that. And I think it's such a low number just because they don't have a true understanding of what the gospel is, so they aren't able to share it. Even asking students, what is the gospel, or an adult, that you get the typical answers like the gospel is the Bible, or the gospel is Jesus dying on the cross, but there's no depth to their answer. They can't go any deeper than that. They just know the basics because they've never been taught anymore. And so it's really clear to me, through the students' lack of understanding, that their parents don't understand either. And or it's not, maybe they do understand, but they're not taking on that role and teaching their students and being a discipler of their kids the way that the Bible commands them to be. And so I don't think that the excuse is necessarily that the church isn't teaching the gospel, or that the church isn't teaching adults how to share the gospel, because I truly believe that it is, and that the leaders are doing a good job of sharing that. However, I think that it needs to be simplified because I think, for most people growing up or in a Baptist church, they just make an assumption that because they go to church, because they were baptized at a young age, that means they're saved and they know everything that they need to know, when that's not the case at all. And so I think that even for the adults, the gospel really just needs to be simplified, and in order for the adults to better understand it, so that they can share it with their kids, so their kids can have an understanding as well. And so I think that seed, it's never going to grow if there's not a solid and firm foundation. And I just don't think that many adults or kids in the church have that today.
My name is Ricardo Devine, and so to answer the question, I would say that the church that I'm attending now, I've only been there for about a month and a half, so it's difficult to gauge from that. But the other churches that I've been to, I would say that if I were to ask the question of how evangelism is going, discipleship, I would say many of the parents would struggle to answer that question due to they're mentioning many times where our youth leader will be the one that shares the gospel with my child or lead him to faith, or the pastor will do that job. And also, that happened in my life as well. So I can also attest to, like, Baptist churches some are very good about helping parents lead into that, but many churches expect the leaders to do that, and only the leaders to do that. There's a certain expectation that they think that they're paying them to do that. And I would say that, that's a dangerous mindset to have. But as well, how if they were to kind of share the gospel, it would be your testimony is the gospel. And I don't believe that gets really any understanding behind the true gospel. It's you give a half a gospel to the kids, and they're even more confused when they go to college, because they think that is what saves them, is maybe a testimony that they thought they were saved through church camp or something like that. So I would say, that is something that has to dramatically change as leaders, is to really instill an urgency. As we've all mentioned, there has to be urgency for the children and for the adults to recognize that they may not be saved as well. And if they are, how do you disciple them to grow deeper into the walk with the Lord so that their kids may see it as well? So.
All right. Hi, my name is Susanna Kim, and my answer to that is I think that there are not many teenager parents who can present the gospel to their children, not just for their children, but they cannot present to anyone. I think because they usually think that presenting a gospel is like a leader's job, and then it's not their authority to tell people, or they cannot define the right definition of the gospel. When they feels like when feels like only those people who have authority can ask, it's like ministry or pastor. And so because of that authority, they used to think that presenting a gospel also is part of their right. So when they want to present the gospel, they brought their kids or their friends to the leader or the pastor, and then they want the leader or pastor to present the gospel to their kids. So I feel like the parents is really, their part is kind of they give the right to their pastor, and they don't feel like they have the right of presenting gospel to their kids anymore in the church.